whatever you are. All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Ayin Zayin Maseches Ksubas, the last blot of Perek Hamadir. So not difficult today, just long. Ayin Zayin. So I think you told me you forgot where we went. I don't know. All right, we're at the Mishnah at the top of Ayin Zayin, but Aleph 77A1. All right. Ha'ish shenal deloy b'mumin. I'm gonna try to go a little fast today. So a man shenal b'mumin. If a person developed, according to our Mishnah says the word developed, right? It was born to him, right, during the marriage. We don't force him to go ahead and divorce his wife, on her behalf. This is only with small, right, blemishes. But if they're large blemishes and he develops them, then we do force him to go ahead and divorce his wife, as it's not quote unquote not fair to her. Zok the Gemara. Rav Yehuda Tani Noldu. So Rav Yehuda says, the same lashon we have in the Mishnah, Noldu. And Chiyabar Rav Tani Tani Hayu. He says no Hayu. No, it's Ha'isha Hayu Bamumin. In other words, if he had blemishes, which sounds like not just developed during the marriage, but even from before. So Ma'adim Noldu, if he says that they occurred during the marriage, Kol Shekain, certainly Hayu. Certainly we don't force him to divorce her if they had him before. Why? Except of the Kibla, right? Ayin Zayin, right? Because obviously he had them before. She knew about it, and she says, okay. Nevertheless, as we saw Gemara's earlier, she's happy to she'd rather be married than be single. But if it says Hayu, then we don't force them about no. But if they occurred during the marriage, then perhaps we could go ahead and force him to divorce her. So tonight, let's look at our Mishnah. Rav Shmuel says in the Tanna Kama, what are we talking about? Then we do go ahead and force him to divorce her. So it makes sense according to the lashon that we have noldu hainu deshani ben gedol l'ktani, because that's the because the difference between whether they're large or small blemishes. In other words, if you develop large blemishes, then we divorce you. Small ones, if you don't have to. But according to the shita that says hayu was lashon the Mishnah. So if she knew about the blemishes before they got married, what does it make a difference whether they're large or small? If she wanted to go ahead and get married, so why would we force them to go out? So the answer is no. Hasavra the kiba, she knew about it and she was makabel. She accepted it. So the answer is no. She thought that she could withstand. She thought, okay, I can live with the guy with this condition, but it turns out it was too difficult for her. Ve'elu hate mumin gedolim, and these are the types of mumin gedolim. Pesha v'shum mil kigayin nesimas eno. Right, he becomes blind. Or nafta yado, or his hand gets chopped off, and ishba raglo, or his leg gets shattered or removed, removed. And Itamar, Rabbi Abba Bar Yaakov, Rabbi Yechon, halacha Rav Shimon Gamliel. Halacha is like Rav Shimon Gamliel that with mumin gedolim we force him to divorce him. Rav Amar, so Rav Amar Rav Nachman, halacha to Kedibur Chachamim. Halacha is like Chachamim. So again, if they get divorced, then obviously. He would have to pay her. She did the first case previously. She had the move. Would he not have to give her a if she had a move in the middle of marriage, and if she develops a move, no. I think that right. Yeah, he has to pay her. Yeah, he has to pay her. It's tough luck on him. It's only if from before, then it's the whole thing. Right. Now, and he said, we Amar Rav Yechanan Hachi, and the Rav Yechanan have to go ahead and say the halach is like Rav Shimon Gamliel. Anytime it mentions Rav Shimon Gamliel in a Mishnah, the halach is like him, except for three cases. Except for other cases, Shapir in the Mishnayos of Arev and the Ma'aseh Tzidon, and bringing a Raya Achrona, all those cases is machlokes in the Mishnah, and Rabbi the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So what is the necessity to say the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel if we already know the halacha is like? So my answer is no. Amarai Nino, but leave it to Rabbi Yechon. No, it's machlokes Amarai in the sheet of Rabbi Yechon. Once the halacha is always like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, therefore, besides those three cases, therefore there was no necessity to say halacha k'maiso. And the other sheet is not all cases, and therefore we had to go ahead and say in this case halacha is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Fine. Now in Mishnah. And these are the ones that we do force them to go ahead and leave. A person who has mukashchin, he has a type of boils with suksi, types of what it is. Obal polipus, person who has polipus, was there that is a makametz, a mitzaref, nechayshis, vaborsi. One is makametz, a gatherer, we'll see what that is, right? Mitzaref nechayshis, a copper miner, and borsi the tanner. Right? Those most people are pretty putrid smelling people. So bein shayu achla nisu bein mishanisu, whether they had this from before, or bein mishanisu, or they only began this job or from the time they got married. No, right? Or afterwards they got married, then they occurred. We can force, if she says, yeah, you know, I need my get, I need to get out of here, we can force him to divorce her. Yeah, even though she made this with him, and she gets it, and she gets her ksuba, right? Even though she said, okay, you know what, you guys says, will you marry me? But however, I'm a tanner. She says, okay, no big deal. And even she says, right? She could say, hey, I thought I could have lived with you. However, now I realize after 2 months that you simply stink. I can't be around you, and therefore we do go ahead and help her get divorced and get her money. No, she has to accept it. Why? Because of his mak. In other words, by living with her, by having relations with her, that furthermore makes his mukashchin even worse, and therefore it only gets worse. And to be married, and therefore we go ahead and we, in that case, we force him to divorce her. On the Borsiach, at the time there was a tanner Shemay said he died. And his brother's also tanner, family business. And they had no kids. She could say, she could say, with your brother, he had a good personality, even though he stunk, I was willing to live with him. But you stink, and therefore I'm not doing yibum. And then we go ahead and we listen to her. Fine. So, whatever, I have a couple questions in that case, but fine. Sure, I'll take one. I was up in the fours. All right. Yeah. So my Baal Polifa. So we said earlier, one of the conditions that the larger woman that we do go ahead and force is the guy has Polifa. So what is that? Right? His nose smells, right? Not he smells with his nose, rather there's a very foul odor from his nose. Then in Bryce, he's an exceptionally horrible breath. So Rav Asi Masibcha, he actually says reverse. And Umanachle Simon, and he has a way to go ahead and remember that Rav Asi says why he says Shmuel Pasik Kume Bekule Pirkin, right? Shmuel, the words never left his mouth. In other words, Shmuel was the one who said who's the foul odor leaving from the mouth. So that was Rav Asi's way of remembering that the words of Torah never left his mouth, meaning that this pulsi is the odor from the mouth. Now, makamitz, what is makamitz? My makamitz, a person who goes ahead and gathers, he gathers fertilizer, he gathers the dung, right? The feces of dogs. So from the Bryce it says makamitz bursi, that's a tanner. So it's a kasha. So we see makamitz is a tanner, not the person who collects the dog excrement. I will tamich. If you say that, look at our Mishnah. It says Hamakametz, Hamatzaref, and the Chayshes about Bursi. It says Makametz, according to you, means a Bursi, then it mentions Bursi again. So how can it be two things? So Bishlam must see something like Kash. You can say it by the contradiction in Bryce, between Bryce and the Mishnah. It's not a contradiction. Why? Kamba Bursi, Gadol, Kamba Bursi, Kalton. One is, I guess, a tanner of large items, a certain smell, and that was a tanner of smaller stuff, also a different smell. Elder Yehuda, but according to Yehuda, Kash, it's a Kash. It says Mefarish Makametz is Bursi. So he answers no. Tonight, it's tonight. The time we go to the Brisa. Mekametz, Zabursi, the Yeshayim, Mekametz, so it's called Mekametz. One Tana says it's a tanner, another Tana says it is one who goes ahead and collects the excrements of dogs. Fine. One who goes ahead and I guess he deals with copper. So my Mitzvah B'Chayshes, what does it mean? So Rav Ashi Yomar Chashule. So right, it's someone who he works with the actual copper, right? He works with it. He makes utensils. And Rabbi Rachan he mines it. He mines copper. And Tanik was the Rabbi Rachan Ezu Mitzaref. What is Mitzaref? That's someone who mines copper. And Omer Rab Ha'omer Eini Zon the Eini Mefarnes. One who says, I'm not going to give you your money. I'm not going to support you. We force him to go ahead and get her ksuba and get out of the marriage. So Azar Rabbi Lazar Amar L'Shmaitzik Amar Shmuel, he says for Shmuel Amar, says Lazar. Let's feed Elazar barley, force feed him like an animal, right? In other words, he didn't like what he said. In other words, we force him to go to divorce her if he says I'm not going to support her. Why? Before you force him, if you're going to force him to do something, why are you forcing him to divorce her? Force him to feed her. Force him to support her. That's what you should be forced to do, not divorce, right? We don't encourage divorce. So, however, why do you say, a person doesn't want to go ahead and live with a snake, and there's thank you. And therefore, since this guy, he doesn't want to support her, we're going to force support her, I can't imagine what kind of Shabbos table that would be. Fine. He found Ben Yafis, the Yasi V'Kamalari, he saw he was teaching Mishmei the Rabbi Yechon, the name of Rabbi Yechon, Amar Lei. So basically, he said this memra that we force him to divorce her, and he commented on that. By the way, that's not a good say. We don't force him to divorce her. Rather, we force him to go ahead and feed her. And he says, for this statement, that's what we fed Lazar of Bavel, barley. Fine. We only go ahead and force a divorce to a woman who is a psolas, right? Only to a woman who is basically apostle to the person. We'll give an example, right? What are you talking about? We're talking about Mishnah about forcing the man to divorce his wife. So right? When do we force? We don't force the person in the moon. Rather, we force if a widow was married to a kohen gadol, gusha chalutza, or a divorce, or a chalutza, the kohen hedyot. Mamzer and Sin to Yisrael, or Mamzer and Sin to Yisrael, Basel and Sin, or the Mamzer, or the Basel to Sin or Mamzer, Aval Nas, Isha, Vashayima, Asashanim. But let's say a man marries a woman, he does have children with her for 10 years, and now he's not going to be able to go ahead and fulfill the mitzvah of Puruvu. Right? Aval Nas, Isha, Vashayima, Asashanim, V'layalda, Ein Kaifinaso. We don't force them. Now, as we force, according to this, we only force the Daraisa forbidden cases. We don't force the cases of the psulim, of the mumin, and we don't force the guy who has lived with his wife for 10 years and not have any children. No, I disagree in the last one. A man who's married to a woman for 10 years and he has not had children, there we go ahead and force him to leave her in order to find somebody else to go ahead and fill the mitzvah of Puruvu. So Tanat. So we learn, it says, Tanan, these are the ones, our mission says, these are the ones that you go ahead and force to go ahead and divorce his wife. We said Mukashrin, about Philipos, we said Mukashrin, about Philipos, all these other cases, Tanner and those things. Person who boils. So Bishlam Ravasi, I understand why Ravasi knows the way he learned on Mishnah is why did it list these items? Derabanan, Katani, Deraisa, Katani. It only listed the Derabanans. It listed the cases of a person with these blemishes that a woman can't live with. It doesn't mention any of the deraisas. Ella tachlifa baravimi listing nasa isha v'sha ima esushanim v'layalda kaifina. So if you're talking about cases of derabanans, which we go ahead and force, right? Why did you list the case of a man married to a woman for 10 years? Right? Our mission is only talking about, right, cases of where our mission is only talking about cases of where we force them by words, right? Now, by Puruvu, only those are by words we go ahead and tell them, all right? However, we don't go ahead and whip them, all right? However, these other blemishes, even though they're a drabanan, then we whip the guy to divorce. In case of Mukashrin or a tan or those cases, then we physically force him, not just, encourage him. So it says, the Apostle says, it says over there, initially, the famous passage initially, that with words, you can't go ahead and force your servant, right? So in other words, words don't do anything. What are the words doing here? You can't force with words. Oh, it'd be nice if you divorce her, right? Really, both cases are talking about forcing. However, Hassam over there in the case by the Mishnah, Ki Amra Havina Bahade Shafkina La, when she says, you know what, I'll live with this guy with boils or whatever it is, then we leave her. Hacha, but over here, or maybe not boils, but the other case that we said even the nose we don't allow, but for a tanner or something that stinks. However, Hacha. But in the other case, if she lived with the guy for 10 years, no children, she says, you know what, it's okay, I'll live with him. No, we still go ahead and we don't allow her to remain with him. Well, what do you mean? Are you talking about cases that if you're gonna whip them and the woman says, I'm gonna stick around, then we allow the women to stick around, those are listed in the Mishnah, but it says by Mukashchin. If she says, I'll stay with him, we don't allow her. The time of the Mishnah right? Because of his wound, it gets worse, when he lives with her as a husband and wife. It says Ki Amra Diary Bahade, right? So he says, no, over there in the case when she says, I'll live with Bahadi, she says, you know what? We won't live, intimately with one another. We'll have witnesses. We'll have someone live in the house with us, a shomer. So therefore, we allow. However, in the case of Puravu, but if they say, no, okay, we'll live with people here, right? That doesn't help because he's not going to fulfill his mitzvah Puravu. So even if witnesses in the house, right, that doesn't do. Relations doesn't aggravate anything, right? The problem is that him and her can't have children together, so let him go somewhere else. So therefore, in that case, if she says, hey, we'll have witnesses in the house, we don't allow that even in that case, and once again, we insist on the divorce. Fine.
Amen. Beautiful, bro.
Tanya, we're learning the Brisa. It's only for one of the elders in the Anshi Yishalayim. The Arba, excuse me. Esrig the Arba Mukashchinen. 24 types of Mukashchinen. The Chulon Amr Chachamim Tashmish Kashalan, and all of them they say Tashmish relations is difficult for it. It worsens it. Ubali Rasan Kasha Mikula. And one who has Rasan. Rasan is one of the types of Mukashchin, of these quote unquote boils, not as they boils, some sort of like an organism or something living in his body, in his brain. That is more painful or difficult than the others. So, my hobby. So, what is that? The Tanya. So, where does it come from? The Tanya, the Rabbi says, he's dumb, the Shimesh. Have a little buddy, the seeker, right? Right. If he bloodlets and then he immediately has relations with his wife to have a child, his children will be weak. Hey, Kizu Shnei, both of them go ahead and be making some bloodlet, the Shimshu, and they have relations, Avian, and she gets conceives. Then they will have children.
What's the source of being weak?
If he was a bloodlet, he went there. He make his dam, right? He went to bloodlet, and then he went and he had relations with his wife. Then the children from that after, because he wasn't.
His blood pressure when he's slow,
that's not good, right? So soon see, right? And he's mishamesh with both of them. Then the children will have the worst type of mukashchin of rasan, bali rasan. And Amra Papa, however, lo amran at the light time meeting. That's only if he didn't eat after he had the surgery or the make his dumb. Baltam, he did the last lamba. But if he went ahead and ate something, then we're not concerned. So my simane, what are the different simanim of having rasan? So dolphin eine, right? His eyes begin to tear. The davi nefure, and his nose, right, drips. The aisila ariri bepume, and his mouth waters. He salivates. And there's a lot of flies around. My to say, and how do you take care of this? All right, so I'm not. You go maybe take notes. Right, this is what they do. Amar Abaye. They take all of these different ingredients. They take pila, velodana, right? This pennyroyal. And this type of ladna also called, the English says it's wormwood. I don't know what that is. Type of, Eddie probably can tell us what that is, right? And so girdo, the geiza, the girdo, the ashba, right? And the parts from a nut tree or from a hide, or klil, malka, and the lily, bischala, the dikla, sumka, and from the raw dates or early dates, right? Take those. The shaligu, the dadi, mix them all together. The base it, and you mix it all together. The shalik, right? You boil them together, right? You boil them all together in one pot, right? And then when you do and you go ahead, bring in a marble room. Marble room I brought in the Gemara is a room basically with no air, no circulation. Right, there's no wind. The shisha mila, the base of the shal with the aricha. Right, go ahead and find a house with the thickness of the walls of 7.5 bricks. Right, thick, The notilate tlas mea kaisa ration. He had this big pot of boiled of all his ingredients together. Pour it on the top of his head 300 times.
Whoa.
Soften his head, right? Like what was it? What was that movie? Silence of the Lambs, the second one, right? You'll see. So the muche until the top of his head is very soft. The karla muche, and then now go ahead and take off the skin from the top of his head, right? And go ahead and bring 4 leaves of hadassah, of asa, of myrtles, whatever this organism is living in his head, which is the rasa, right? Each one of his legs on top of the brain, because that's where it's hiding. It's like hiding the guy's head, like above his brain, right? So take this organism and put each of his legs on a leaf, right? When it leaves, the shakel b'tzavasa, and go ahead and take it off the tongs, because if you don't use a leaf, it's gonna grab into the brain. So you don't want to grab into the brain. So you put on leaves and you take it out with tongs, the color, and then you destroy it. You burn it. Because if not, if you don't burn it and destroy it, it doesn't come back into the guy's brain. Fine.
Wow.
You can tempt that.
I'm going to do this surgery tomorrow.
Machers of
I
Machers
got
of
the whole formula here.
And you don't laugh.
Yeah.
Right on you.
So Machers of Yechon. So it says be careful of the flies and mosquitoes of who have rasa, because I guess they can spread it. And you wouldn't go by a wind was near somebody who had rasa, and you wouldn't go to the same room or same house or same tent. Right? They wanted the eggs from that neighborhood, from the mob or an area that there was someone who had rasa. He said, right? He says, I know how to prevent it. I'm going to go ahead and learn Torah, because a person, even a person has no charm, he learns Torah, he gets charm. So he says, right? So he says, certainly, right? If learning Torah can bring charm to somebody who doesn't have, certainly it can protect me and keep me with my charm and prevent me from having all these ailments from rasa. Now, so when he was time for Rabbi Shua ben Levi to die, so he says, okay, now it's your turn to go ahead and give Rabbi Shua ben Levi. So he say, so of course he was good friends. Rabbi Shua ben Levi was friends with the Malcham Abbas. So he said, show me my place in Gan Eden. So Amalei says, okay, no problem. So Amalei Havili Sikan, right? Dilma, says, give me your knife, because perhaps you're going to get startled on the way and you're going to go ahead and kill me early. So Yavi Nilei said, okay, fine, I trust you. Maybe here's the knife. So he lifted him up to go ahead and see over and see Gan Eden. Right? So over there, he went ahead, he looked over and he saw his place. So he lifted him up. And Nafalu Gasa. And Rabbi Shua ben Levi jumped up and he basically jumped to the other side. So Nokte, the kind of the Malcham Abbas grabbed the corner of his garment, tried to pull him back in, and he didn't have his knife, he couldn't do anything. He says, I'm making a shvua, right? I'm not coming back to the other side. I'm staying here in Gan Eden. You know, I'm skipping the dying part. I'm just staying in Gan Eden. Adios. So he says, the Malcham Abbas basically said, has he ever made a shvua, right? That he violated, that he went to be shayld not to keep it. If so, why should the shvua be different? Let him not keep the shvua. So he lo another. But if not, if he never had a shvua broken, then he made a shvua, he's not coming back, then okay, fine, I'll go with him. So Amalei Havli Sakina. So he said that he never had one. So Amalei Havli Sakina. He says, give my knife. He says, no, I'm not giving it to you. So he said, go back and give him his knife back, because he needs it for the other people. You're good, right? You can stay there in Gan Eden, but give him his knife back so the Malcham Abbas can go back to his job. So Machriz Elio Kameh. So when he came to Gan Eden, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, so Elio announced before him, Panu Makom Levar, right? Levar Levi, right? Go ahead and make space for Bar Levi. Panu Makom Levar Levi. So Azil Ashkein Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, some Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Havi Yasim al Tlas Eser. Right, Tachtite Pisa. He said he was sitting on 13 golden chairs. So Amalei Atu Bar Levi. So it said of Shimon Bar Yochai to Shimon Levi, are you Bar Levi? Amalei, he said, yeah. So he sort of wanted to test him. How special he was. He heard about him. So did you ever see a rainbow during your days? Yeah, I saw a rainbow. You're not the Bar Levi that they talk about in here. In other words, because a rainbow only comes when the world was, going to be destroyed, and it's not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was promised to Bnei Israel. So Rabbi Shmuel Levi should have been special enough that there was never a rainbow in his generation. However, so he said, however, really he didn't tell the truth. There was never a rainbow in his days. He didn't want to go ahead and sort of, praise himself and pat himself on the back, so he just sort of went along with it. Now, Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa Shishbnei Habi Kiyavi Kadnich. So he was also good friends to Machamavas Kiyavi Kadnich Nashe. Yeah, when it was time for him to die, Amrle Lamal Chamaves Zil Amrle Reusa. Go ahead and do what you want with them. It's time for him to die. For Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa to die. So also the Gabe, this Chazal is he saw him. So Amrlo Shafti Tlas and Yaim Adini Adar Talmudai. Give me 30 days. Let me go ahead and Chazer al Shas al Tarkot to Kol Hatar Kula. They say, right? Praiseworthy is a person who comes when his learning, right? That which he's learned is in his hands. So Shavke, so he left him fine. So Bas and after 30 days, he saw him. So go ahead and show me my place. So also Nachum Avos says, okay, I remember this. He says, okay, fine. So also, by the way, give me your knife. Because remember, the knife was what stopped, the Malachim Avos from bringing your Shubin Levi back. So he says, perhaps you'll come startled, you're scared in the derech, and you come early. Right. So he said, no, I remember, what happened with your friend, and yes, okay. So I see Sefer Torah. Bring me a Sefer Torah. So bring me a Sefer Torah. You don't believe me? Bring me a Sefer Torah. And is there anything in here that I didn't go ahead and follow? Yes, did you go by people who who had Rasan and learned Torah with him? Right? In other words, he didn't do that part. He didn't protect people from Rasan. Nevertheless, so he didn't get into Gan Eden alive. Nevertheless, when he did die, he had this pillar of fire separating him between, I guess, his body and the rest of the world. They couldn't go ahead and deal with his body.
What the chap between both that they didn't want to be dying and then because
Shubin Levi, he went to Gan Eden alive.
No, before they go to Gan Eden, there was a step that they wanted to skip.
Right, Rabbi Shubin Levi skipped it. Right, Rabbi Shubin Levi skipped it. He skipped the whole death part.
Right.
So there was a pillar there, a pillar of fire. The Gemara we learned the we know there's only a pillar of fire between a person and the rest of the generation, only 1 or 2 per generation. So they called it Alexandria. So they had to get this pillar of fire away to go ahead and deal with the mace. Do for the Kavach Chachamim that they don't have a pillar of fire. At least remove the pillar of fire for their honor. But how would the pillar of fire didn't go away? Also, do for the honor of your father. The pillar of fire didn't leave. Also, do it for your own honor, the pillar of fire, so that they should be able to go ahead and deal with the mace. He still like it went away, and right. So this is another basically to go ahead and separate him from the person who did not go ahead and keep Kol Torah Kula, right? What do you mean? What is this? Also prevent people who didn't have a makkah, right, a fence around the roof. However, that wasn't true. However, right? Really, he did have one, right? Abaye did have one, so don't start throwing shade at Abaye. He had a makkah. However, it just blew down. There was a strong wind. And Amr Chanin and Balaras and Bavel. By the way, go back to Rasim. Why does it know Rasim Bavel? Because he used to go ahead and eat beets and drink beer of Hizame, of a certain type of bush. And Amr Rabbi Yechon Mipnei Metzurim Bavel. Why did he with Rasim Bavel? Tried the V'Shais in Sheikha V'Rechtzim B'Mei Pras, because they used to go ahead and once again eat beets and drink beer. I guess those are healthy. And they would go ahead and bathe in the Pras, the Euphrates, and that would, I guess, keep them healthy and prevent tzaras, and also help prevent rasim. Hajr